Let's first have an overview of what an ITIN really is. So what is an ITIN? The Internal Revenue Service issues Individual Taxpayer Identification Number, ITINs, to people who are required to have a U.S. Taxpayer Identification Number, but who do not have or are not eligible for a Social Security number. So if you don't qualify for a Social Security number, the IRS will actually issue to you an ITIN. That's if you have to actually have a number for various reasons. An ITIN does not allow you to receive Social Security benefits, to allow you to claim the EITC, that's the Earned Income Tax Credit, permit a child to be claimed for the EITC or CTC. A child must have a valid Social Security number and authorization to legally work in the United States to be claimed for the EITC or CTC. An ITIN does not allow you to change your immigration status. Does not mean you are an undocumented worker. An ITIN does not give you the right to work in the United States. So there are other conditions that you need to qualify for, that you need to fulfill before qualifying for a work permit in this country. And so any individual who is eligible to be legally employed in the United States must have a Social Security number. If you have an ITIN, you should not provide this to your employer in place of a Social Security number, since this will indicate to your employer and to the Social Security Administration that you are not authorized to work. Okay, so those are really important things to really remember. The ITIN is used in place of a Social Security number on a tax return to identify you, your spouse, or a dependent without a Social Security number on the tax return. Let me give you an example. If you are an immigrant in the United States who has applied for legal status to work or reside in the United States, you would need an ITIN to file a tax return while waiting for a decision. In other words, the government still wants you to pay taxes, but they're just waiting for your social to be authorized. So if you have an ITIN that was issued before 2013, it has expired and you should have already received a notice from the IRS to renew it. If you haven't used your ITIN on a U.S. federal tax return in the last 3 years, you will need to renew it. Very important. So go to the IRS websites. They have all kinds of information about ITIN renewals. So the big question is, who needs an ITIN? Now, welcome back to the channel, by the way. Welcome back. We'll really appreciate having you here. We're having a sweet conversation about how to file taxes with ITIN number. I'm giving you easy steps. So the ITIN, the Individual Tax Identification Number, allows taxpayers who don't have a social to file income tax returns. Unlike other forms of ID, ITINs only have one purpose: tax filing and reporting. Having an ITIN number would not make you eligible for benefits. Okay, I've said this before. I'm talking about Social Security or earned income credits that provide refunds to some low-income filers. Qualified applicants, so both residents and non-resident aliens may obtain ITINs regardless of immigration status. Non-resident and resident aliens, their spouses, and dependents can apply for an ITIN if they are not eligible for a Social Security number. And so here is who might need an ITIN. Non-resident aliens who are required to file a tax return, resident aliens who are required to file a tax return due to the number of days they reside in the United States, dependents or the spouse of a U.S. citizen or resident alien, dependents or spouse of non-resident alien visa holders. Okay, so tax filers who live abroad can also obtain an ITIN. So this is totally possible. Now the application process is very simple. The ITIN is basically a 9-digit number that is formatted similarly to a Social Security number. To apply for an ITIN, you must complete IRS Form W-7, application for IRS identification for IRS Individual Taxpayer Identification Number. So this single-page application will require your name and birth name, if different, because sometimes you might have a different name. Let's say people get married and they have a different maiden name than their current name. So your name and birth name is different. Your birthplace and birth date, identification documents to accompany your application, such as passport, driver's license, or state issued ID, and your foreign status or immigration documents in original form or certified copies. If you have used an ITIN in the past, you must provide the prior identification number on your application. Okay, so for most taxpayers, the due date to file an income tax return this year is around the second to third week in April. So submitting an application past the due date may result in interest or penalties, so you want to apply for an ITIN either before your income tax return is due or at the time of filing. You should expect to hear back from the IRS about your approval status after no more than 7 weeks. Look for a letter in the mail with your ITIN when your application is approved. Okay? So the big question is, why should you get an ITIN? I just want to quickly remind everybody of today's topic. We're having a conversation about how to file taxes with an ITIN. Okay, and I quickly want to say that there are other options for applying for an ITIN. So you can apply online, but you can also apply by mail at the IRS Austin Service Center, ITIN Operation PO Box 149342, Austin, Texas 78714-9342. You can also apply in person at a certified acceptance agency or a taxpayer acceptance center. Okay. Now, in terms of ITIN expiration and renewal, you have to actually, as I said before, if your ITIN has expired, you have to renew as soon as possible. Now, some of the benefits to getting an ITIN include filing taxes, of course. So this can serve as proof of good moral character in immigration cases. So filing taxes can be helpful in your immigration case if you are able to adjust your status in the future. You can actually open a personal bank account. So in some cases, an ITIN can be used as a substitute for a social security number to open a personal checking or savings account. A bank account is a safe place to store your money and allows you to establish a financial history. You can also use an ITIN to build credit. Yes. Some credit cards require you to have an established bank account to apply. So by developing a good credit history, you may actually be able to do things like buying a house, purchasing a car, or borrowing money to start a business in the future. And the thing is, this is regardless of your immigration status. Obviously, if you want to live in this country and you want to buy a house. I mean, buying a house means you think about living here for a long time, or unless you are buying this as an investment or you're buying this as a secondary residence. But if you want to buy a house in this country as your primary residence, so it's really good to actually build credit. An ITIN can also help you claim tax credits. Filing taxes also mean that you can claim tax credits that you are eligible for. These credits can reduce the amount of taxes you owe, or it can provide you a tax refund that you can put towards your savings. For example, you can actually put toward things like the cost of raising kids or to cover daily living expenses. And you can also use an ITIN to purchase health insurance. Well, when you purchase health insurance for your U.S.-born children through the health insurance marketplace, you may be eligible for the premium tax credit, the PTC, which can help you lower how much you spend on insurance. And to get the PTC, parents with ITINs are required to file their taxes. And you can also secure identification. Some state governments will accept ITINs as proof of identification when applying for a state-issued ID. Having state-issued identification can expand your traveling options. In eligible states, you can apply for your driver's license, and you can use your ID to pass through TSA at airports. Let's talk about how to file taxes with an ITIN. How do you actually do the whole thing? So to file a tax return, you must enter your ITIN in the space for the social security number on the tax form. You need to complete the rest of the return and submit the tax return along with any additional forms to the IRS. So basically, the way you file your 1040 with an ITIN is the same thing as you file your 1040 with the social security number. It's only the numbers that change. So in lieu of the social security number, you put your ITIN. That's it. And now I want to talk about something that people really care about. And so, can you claim tax credit with an ITIN? Yes. That's the big question here. Yes. There are some tax credits that you may be eligible to claim with an ITIN. Let's talk about the CTC. So, the Child Tax Credit. So this tax benefit is worth up to $3,000 for each child under 17. It's worth up to $3,600 for children under 6 years old. Okay, Eligibility for claiming the CTC depends on the status of your children. You can only claim the CTC if your qualifying children have Social Security number. If they have Social Security numbers, then yes. You and your spouse, if married, can have an ITIN or social, doesn't matter. Okay, and so basically the thing is that to claim the CTC, you will enter your ITIN and your children's social, okay, on the Schedule 8812, additional child tax credit. So qualifying children for the CTC must be either a U.S. citizen or a resident alien living in the United States. Okay, if your ITIN has expired, you can still claim the expanded CTC if you meet other eligibility requirements. So please be very clear and make sure that you renew your expired ITIN by submitting a completed IRS Form W-7. The second tax credit that you might actually qualify for is called the credit for other dependents. So a $500 non-refundable credit is available for families with qualifying relatives. So this includes children over 17 and children with an ITIN who otherwise qualify for the CTC. Additionally, qualifying relatives who are considered a dependent for tax purposes, like dependent parents, can be claimed for this credit. So since this credit is essentially non-refundable, it can only help reduce taxes owed. So if you are eligible, let's say you are eligible for both this credit and the CTC, this will be applied first to lower your taxable income. Another credit you might qualify for is called the Recovery Rebate Credit, the RRC. And so by the way, I just want to quickly remind everybody of today's topic. We are having a conversation about how to file taxes with ITIN number. So if you did not get your third stimulus check, you can still claim it as the RRC when you file a 2021 tax return in 2022. And in some cases, you might even claim this RRC when you file your 2022 tax return. Okay, and depending on the state where you are, depending on your situation too. And any family member that has a social can qualify for the stimulus check, even if the tax filer has an ITIN. Okay, for example, if a household where both parents have ITINs and their children have Social Security numbers, the children qualify for the stimulus checks, even though the parents don't. And you also have the Child and Dependent Care Credit. So this is a federal tax benefit that can help you pay expenses for child or adult care that's needed to work or to look for work. Okay, so this is really good. And so this credit is fully refundable. This means the credit can provide money back even if you don't owe taxes. It's worth up to $4,000 for one dependent or up to $8,000 for two or more dependents. You also have the American Opportunity Tax Credits. So this credit is worth up to $2,500 and can help reduce educational expenses to attend college. So the credit is only available for the first 4 years of a student's post-secondary education. And eligible students must be pursuing a degree or another recognized credential. You also have the Lifetime Learning Credit. So this non-refundable credit is worth up to $2,000 per household. It can be used to help reduce any post-secondary educational expenses such as job training and is not limited to people attending college. Okay, one thing I have to say here, and is very quintessential to mention, is that you cannot claim the Earned Income Tax Credit within an ITIN. Let me repeat that. You cannot claim the Earned Income Tax Credit, the EITC, within an ITIN form. In other words, if you're filing your Form 1040 and instead of using your social, you are using an ITIN, you can never claim the Earned Income Tax Credit, at least as of the date of this show. Let's quickly talk about how to apply for an ITIN. We actually covered this at length on another show, but and I just said it very quickly earlier, but I want to dig a little deeper here. So if you want the full video, just send us just put your request, your question in the comment section. We'll send you the link, and or you can just go to our video catalog. We have a full video about Form W-7. So if you want to file a tax return but cannot obtain a valid Social Security number, you must complete the Form IRS Form W-7, application for IRS Individual Taxpayer Identification Number. And the thing here is that Form W-7 must be submitted to the IRS with a completed tax return and documents that verify your identity and foreign status. You will need original documents or certified copies from the issuing agencies. Okay, please make sure that you have those documents, because if you don't have those documents, the IRS will not process your request. The instructions for Form W-7 describe which documents are acceptable. And parents or guardians may complete and sign a Form W-7 for a dependent under age 18 if the dependent is unable to do so, and must check the parent or guardian's box in the signature area of the application. And dependents age 18 and older and spouses must complete and sign their own Forms W-7, because when you think about it, an ITIN is an individual number. So if you have a family, you can't, family members cannot share that ITIN. It's like the social, it's like having a social that is, it's assigned to only one person. Okay. Now, there are 3 ways you can complete the ITIN application. I've said this before, I'm going to repeat it so that it's clear for everyone. So you can go to a taxpayer assistance center. So certain IRS tax, so taxpayers assistance centers have staff who can help you prepare W-7 forms, determine which documents are acceptable, and verify the validity of identification documents. You must schedule an appointment. The second option is through acceptance agent. So an acceptance agent is authorized by the IRS to examine identification documents, certify that they are valid, and send the application to the IRS. For dependents applying for an ITIN, agents send the original documents or copies certified by the original issuing agency to the IRS to help you file a tax return. So, and in some cases, you might actually even go through the acceptance agents to help you file your tax return. And you can also do so. You can also complete the ITIN application through self-preparation. So you can apply directly yourself to the IRS. Another important question is, what if you don't have an immigration status that authorizes you to live in the United States? The thing is that many people who are not authorized to live in the United States worry that filing taxes increases their exposure to the government, fearing this could ultimately result in deportation. So you can be deported. Now, if you already have an ITIN, then the IRS has your information anyway, unless you moved recently. You're not increasing your exposure by renewing an ITIN or filing taxes with an ITIN. And current law generally prohibits the IRS from sharing tax return information with other agencies, with a few important exceptions. For instance, tax return information may in certain cases be shared with state agencies responsible for tax administration or with law enforcement agencies for investigation and prosecution of non-tax criminal laws. And the protections against the disclosure of information are set into law, so they cannot be rescinded by a presidential executive order or other administrative action unless Congress changes the law. So one thing that's very important, what I want to say here is that do not be scared that you'll be deported if you file, unless you're doing something unlawful, something criminal and whatnot. Okay, so because your tax responsibilities are one thing, and your immigration status in this country is another thing. And as I said earlier, and there are some people who don't live in the United States, but they have to file taxes because they have interest in this country, or they have actually sojourned. They have stayed here for more than 6 months during the year. So they actually have to file for taxes, or they have a business here, or they're trying to get credit here, so they need an ITIN. So there are a lot of potential benefits. Okay, and one thing I want to say here is that knowing the potential risk and benefits involved, only proceed with an ITIN application or tax filing if you feel comfortable. And I want to say that this video does not constitute legal advice. You always want to consult with an immigration attorney if you have any concerns. Very, very important. I want to close today's conversation by explaining a little bit what acceptance agents are. I mentioned them before that you are able to file for an ITIN through acceptance agents. Who are they? So those are basically individuals who are authorized by the IRS to assist you in completing your ITIN application. Some acceptance agents do not prepare tax returns. In that case, you must take the completed Form W-7 certified by the agent to a VADA site or commercial tax preparer and submit it with the tax return. Okay, so VADA means Volunteer Individual Tax Assistance Center. So acceptance agents are often found at colleges, financial institutions, accounting firms, nonprofits agencies, and some low-income taxpayer clinics. And commercial tax preparers who are acceptance agents often charge a fee that can range from $50 to $275 for completing the Form W-7. There is no fee for applying directly with the IRS. If you can do it yourself, not a problem. There's no fee involved in that. Okay, please. So I want to say this because sometimes you have scammers who are trying to prey on the good name and naivete of some immigrants in this country. Okay, so the thing is that you just go to the IRS website to have a list of acceptance agents by states, and this list is updated quarterly. And one thing I also want to say here is that low-income taxpayers clinics may also be able to help identify local acceptance agents. And I want to say to organizations here, if you want to become an acceptance agent, to do so, your organizations must actually submit the application IRS Form 13551. Okay, so the form is called IRS Application to Participate in the IRS Acceptance Agent Program. And you need to complete an acceptance agent training. You need to attach the certification form for each authorized representative. You need to complete forensic training and submit certificate of completion. Okay, so there are rules that you have to go through to actually become an acceptance agent. But bottom line is that it's totally possible, and it's a really safe, it's a very efficient manner. Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. In today's conversation, I was just talking to you about how to file taxes with an ITIN. And so we defined the ITIN. I also explained to you who needs an ITIN, why you should get one, how do you file taxes with one, whether you can claim tax credits with an ITIN, how to apply, what if you don't have an immigration status that authorizes you to live in the United States. And I finally talked about acceptance agents. Thank you so much for your attention. God bless you. I'll see you next time. But until then, remember, stay marvelous.